Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be with you and share my thoughts on the practice of presence. I have to say, before I begin, I was impressed by the title of the presentation. So impressed that when I saw possible titles, I thought I'd be really interested in that title. Why the fascination? Number one, because of the word practice. I think that really captures a reality that often we miss, especially in academia where we think we got to work out theories and then apply them. Practice says no, we got to do. Thinking and doing are connected. And it's through doing that we can think more clearly, and thinking more clearly we can do. Also, it's open-ended, right? No one stops practicing, right? It's open-ended. You keep practicing. The most skilled artisans, players, whatever, keep practicing. And so I think there's a truth there that I hope to kind of share with you as we reflect on the practice of presence. And then presence, wow. I thought, what does presence mean? So I went back and said, what's the root of the word? And it seems to be rooted in the 13th century, two Latin words, surprise, two Latin words, pre meaning before, and esse, before existence. I don't know what to do with that, but I think there's a profound truth there. This reflection on the practice of presence is aware of its expansiveness, its significance, its relevance. Obviously, I think we're all aware that there is a growing popularity and interest in presence, being present, not just presents like Christmas present, two different kinds of presents there, but also in terms of mindfulness and being mindful. There's mindfulness-based stress reduction. There's mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. In religious circles, there's centering prayer, meditation, retreats on mindfulness, Tai Chi, yoga, all of those deal with being attentive, being present in the moment. Why the focus? Well, this I think doesn't need a long explanation. We live in a world where attention spans are shortening by the moment. In fact, I see some of you drifting already. We're told as St. Norbert, 20 minutes. 20 minutes is as long as you got for a class, and you better change it. So in an hour, we got to do 3 different things within the class period because you're going to lose people. I think some of my classes have actually shortened that by a bit. But we have a myriad, more seriously, a myriad of health, mental health issues, fascination with the possibility. Just think about this. About 10 years ago, weren't we all fascinated by multitasking? We all wanted to multitask. I don't hear a lot of conversation about that as much any longer. Maybe I'm just out of tune, but I think we've over multitasked, and now we're trying to recenter. We're trying to refocus our thoughts and our attention. Obviously, we're bombarded by interruptions, right? Left and right notifications, left and right, and we live in a very fragmentary. These are all things that I think we're well aware of. Fragmentary, fast-paced, hyper-stimulated environments, social media, and so forth. And so often then I think, I don't know about you, but feel out of control. Feel as though I'm being swept along and losing some kind of center, some kind of tether point, some kind of grounding, because it seems like bounce from one notification to another notification. So I'm looking at notification from the Packers to the war in Syria to politics, and it seems as though we're simply fragmented. Certainly this attention on mindfulness, on presence, I think has been well received. Individual stress reduction, healthy lifestyles, I think we recognize by attending and being present, we can, in fact, improve physiological heartbeat, right, breathing, all these things. And there's spiritual benefits. And yet, this work on self has a downside. By the way, everything in life has an upside and downside. I think I'm becoming more and more convinced of that. There's no perfect solution to anything because we need to practice. And so the criticism is that in trying to be so attentive and be present, it drives us deeper into our individualism. It drives us more into what am I, how am I present? And in the same way, it isolates us to recognize our social responsibility. And so given those two real serious concerns about being obsessed with being present, if there is such a thing, and I think there is, I'd like to offer a few traits that I think are important to cultivate in a way of trying to develop genuine presence, genuine attention. By the way, as I mention these, I'll just be grateful, be wondering and awestruck, be curious, be humble, be responsible. Those are the areas I just like to highlight here in a few moments. Those traits are like ingredients in a recipe, and the order you put them in is not important, but they all have to be there, and they interact with one another. And so you can kind of start in any particular point, and it's a spiral. I don't know, there's some teachers in the room, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, I'm on thin ice here, that second, third grade, when I was in second and third grade, we used to have to first know how to add, and then subtract, and then multiply, and then divide. You had to master each one of those, and then you moved on. Today, I'm told that there's a new way of teaching, and that is you do some addition, and subtraction, multiplication, division, and then you come back around again. It's a spiral because you come back to addition with a kind of a new perception. And I think in trying to develop genuine presence, this is a spiral. It's not like step one. You know, as Americans, we like to do step one, step two, step three, and then we're done. This is much more like a spiral. And it's not exhaustive. So let's think about those virtues, those habits that I think are important to developing genuine presence at a time of the year where we're bombarded by so much. One is to be grateful. There's been a lot written here about gratitude and developing gratitude, especially in a world where we're so often divided and find it very difficult to be appreciative of the other and grateful for the other. But to develop gratitude, and from simple things like saying thank you. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not sure if this is something that our athletes are told to do, but there's been a new kind of tradition at St. Norbert that at the end of the semester, especially athletes will come up and say, thank you, Dr. Ebert, for a great semester. Now, I'm not sure if they're thanking me because the course is over. They're thanking me because they want me to be positive when I when I look at their grades. I'm not cynical, but I'm aware of that. Or how much just that is a new custom to, especially when it's born out of COVID, when it began. And so to express gratitude. And so saying thank you is really important, developing gratitude. But I want to think of gratitude deeper, and that is the gratitude for our ability to be self-aware, for our distinctiveness as human beings, to in fact step back and think of our lives, think of others, reflect on our past, think of the future, be self-aware and This is amazing. And ultimately philosophers will come down, either this was a tragic, bad joke that evolution would give rise to a creature self-aware of its own death, or it's a great gift by something beyond. But this idea that the uniqueness that you and I have as human beings to think, to reflect, to be self-aware is truly, truly a gift. And I think of some quotes here that underscore this. Augustine had this great quote that, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, people go off to see mountains, and they go to see oceans, and they pass themselves by, and they themselves are the greatest miracle. This self-awareness, this self-consciousness, this freedom. Abraham Heschel, just to be present, just to be is blessing, just to live is holy. Gregory Boyle, some of you may know some of his work. He's a priest working in the inner city in LA with gang members, the gang capital of the world. And his great book, Tattoos of the Heart, he talks about there are certain truths that we have to marinate. There's certain truths we have to be marinated in. And I think our uniqueness as human beings, our self-awareness, our self-consciousness, that we're able to be self-aware and aware of our world is truly, truly a gift. Be wondering, not wandering, that comes to, be wondering and awestruck. Again, we're coming into the Christmas season where I think we see this in the face of children. Just them being awestruck, wonder at Christmas and the magic of Christmas. But on a deeper level, to wonder and be in awe of the universe, of the cosmos. That light that hits us, I know it's cloudy, but light that hits us from stars are sometimes millions of years old. Of the complexity of the human body right now. Just think of all that's going on in our bodies that we can be self-aware, self-conscious. And just one little, gap, one little error or health issue can in fact move us to be ill and so forth. And so the wonder of the human body, that we need to in fact recognize, one of the things that I'm on phased retirement now at St. Norbert, and so this summer I was able to work in the yard a lot and started to read about trees and how they're communicating with each other and the communication that's going on among, and just being curious, how does that work? How does it operate? In a wonderful book, and I highly recommend this if you're headed to Barnes & Noble this afternoon, Ed Yong in his book, and some of you might be aware of it, An Immense World, How Animal Senses Reveal the Hidden Realms Around Us. We think of presence and we think of our presence and how the world is present to us. But the world is present to so many species so differently. In terms of dogs' ability to smell, their world, their presence is so radically different than ours. In bacteria, in the first chapter of this book, she just says, well, let's put all these things in a room and think of how their presence, their experience is so very different. Bacteria release chemical signals that viruses detect to kill the bacteria. All this is happening on such an intricate level. Ants releasing chemicals. When I read this, I thought, gee, an ant crawling across my driveway. And always having the temptation, this is public confession, that to stamp the ant, because that was just the thing you did, right? Kill ants. I'm sorry for saying that, but that's kind of a Western thing. But the intricacy of their own lives and the senses of what is reality. Elephants smell food miles away. So their world, their presence is so different. I've been taking care of our daughter's, it's called like carnival goldfish, Turbo. And I'm amazed, Turbo knows me pretty well. Walk in the room and there's Turbo looking right at me like, hey, it's time to feed me. And so when we think about the complexity of the world, to be wonder-filled and to be awestruck, not to put this too poetic, but all things are being present are gifts. Thomas Aquinas says presence is existence is gift, that things are gifting us. I mean, just that metaphor that a tree, right, bacteria, an animal, are gifts to us, waiting, presenting themselves to us for our acknowledgement and our unwrapping in some ways, for our deeper engagement with us. To be curious, to push questions, to not foreclose with answers, to lead us to ask new questions. When's the last time you asked a new question? What is the question that you're asking? To be open to and generous to and be amazed with. Again, the complexity of the world means to be present to. And if I can get philosophical for a moment, I guess I'm being semi-philosophical, is why does anything exist? Why is there anything? I'm not asking how it exists. Why? Why does anything exist? It's an age-old philosophical question. And sometimes it's like, well, why even ask the question? I think in asking the questions, it puts our life, our perspective in some kind of context. In a really interesting book, Frank White talks about the overview effect. That since we have seen the earth from the moon or from outside, that has changed our perception and our curiosity raising new questions. I'm going to just read a short quote here, but just think, as we're talking about that, how the world changed from when we thought that the earth was the center of the universe. And then Galileo came along. We thought human beings were the pinnacle and so different from the animal kingdom. And then Darwin came along. And now we're living in this age where we see, as to put it in terms of Carl Sagan, we are a blue dot. A blue dot. And so Wright talks about the overall effect as a cognitive shift. This overview effect is a shift in worldview reported by astronauts and cosmonauts during space flight. In other words, they come back different. Their experience and their presence is different. Often while viewing the Earth from orbit and transit between the Earth and the Moon or from the lunar surface, it refers to the experience of seeing firsthand the reality that the Earth is in space, a tiny, fragile ball of life, hanging in the void, shielded and nourished by a paper-thin atmosphere. The experience often transforms astronauts' perspective on the planet and humanity's place in the universe. Some common aspects of it are a feeling of awe, a profound understanding of the interconnection of all life, and a renewed sense of responsibility for taking care of the environment. To be humble. You know, humility is a recognition of limits, that we're finite and we're situated. One of the things I find fascinating about us trying to cultivate presence and to be present is that we know we're doing work on ourselves, right? There's things we have to address in our own lives, that we don't come to any experience or any event with a blank slate, that we have a past and a history to it, and we have to reflect on our joys, our hopes, our biases, and our prejudices. And at the same time, we have to recognize that we have a limited perspective, that our perspective is one. This all leads to, and this is the trickiest one, and I'm not sure I've gotten it worked out very well in my own mind, but that being truly present, being truly attentive, carries with it powerful ethical responsibility. Number one, it carries the responsibility to be self-reflective. Again, I just mentioned to be self-reflective of our biases, our prejudices. What do we bring to the situation? One of the things as I get older, I'm more and more fascinated in is why certain things bug me so much. Why do certain things give me joy? I mean, I used to ask, what's wrong with them? More and more I ask, not what's wrong with me, because I wouldn't ask that, but I don't want to be that humble. I would ask, why does that bother me so much? Why am I giving so much brain space to that? What's going on? Is it worth it? Is it valuable? And I think that's part of being humble, but it also carries with it this sense that we are responsible. If you remember, we talked about how unique you and I are. Well, the more privilege we have, the more responsibilities we have. And so woven through the prayers and songs, even that we've heard thus far, is the sense that we are responsible for the world. Yes, we recognize that we are a blue dot. We recognize that there's a big cosmos out there, but we also recognize in our own spheres of influence that we have responsibility. And so being attentive, so on New Year's Eve, not too far away, I'm sure, a lot of times we'll make resolutions. Sometimes I like to turn it around and ask, am I more reflective? Am I more present? Am I more responsible this past year? Instead of so much looking ahead, to kind of take an inventory on one's past. And so again, as I said, these are kind of woven different dimensions, I think, that need to be cultivated, virtues, habits of the heart, to be grateful, to be wondering, and awestruck, to be curious, to be humble, to be responsible. So I'd like to end with two poems that I think capture being present, not only just in the good times, but also in the difficult times. One of them is by Barbara Holmes. It is entitled, "What is Crisis Contemplation?" At the center of every crisis is an inner space, so deep, so beckoning, so suddenly and daringly vast that it feels like a universe. It feels like God. When the unthinkable happens and does not relent, we fall through our hubris toward an inner flow, an abiding and rebirthing darkness that feels like home. The last poem is entitled "The Guest House" by Rami, a 13th century poet. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes.